Hi, my name is Carol Cavino. I'm an online fitness and health coach for women over the age of 40 who are experiencing perimenopausal and menopausal hormonal symptoms. I help these ladies to lose the body fat for good and to tone and strengthen their bodies. Today, I have a special guest. I have with me Crystal O'Keefe. Crystal is a certified personal trainer, nutrition coach, and a competitive athlete. Crystal was an early adopter of Peloton in 2016, and she knows this community inside out. Before finding Peloton, Crystal was a corporate America employee. That's a theme I often see in fitness, stuck in the mundane and inactive lifestyle of just sitting at a desk or lounging on the couch when she got home. Once she found Peloton, her passion for the science behind health, nutrition, and exercise was ignited. The first mile she ever ran was at 41 years old. I definitely relate to this because I started running about the same time, and she didn't know how to swim. She had plenty of bad health habits, but now she is living her best fitness life and inspiring others to make the same changes. And she owes it all to the cultural phenomenon of Peloton. Crystal understands this community from the instructors to the classes to the science of each and every workout. As her passion for fitness and Peloton grew, so did her desire to spread her love and knowledge of fitness through podcasting. She is a fellow podcaster. Her show is called The Clip Out and has documented the entire evolution of Peloton from plucky startup to household name to going completely viral. She's also interviewed hundreds of fellow Peloton members as well as the Peloton executives and instructors to get the inside scoop on all things Peloton. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Oh, Carol, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm so happy to have you on. I'm excited to dive into this topic. I know we're going to talk about all things nutrition and fitness, but I actually don't know a whole lot about Peloton, so I am excited to learn more.
Okay. So Peloton started off as a bike. When most people hear the word Peloton, they think of the bike. That was the first product that they have. One of my favorite things about Peloton is watching their evolution. At this point, they have a bike, they have a treadmill, they just came out with a rower, they have strength devices, they have free weight classes, Pilates, yoga, meditation, cardio dance. They have just completely changed their approach to it. And I love the fact that it's all from home. I was always intimidated by the gym. So that was a key for
Mm.
me to be able to do these things at home. So whenever, when I tell you all of that, does that lead to you any questions? Like, does that bring up anything specifically you want to know more about?
I love the idea of how they evolved beyond the bike. They've gone with the times. So with everybody being kind of stuck at home for a couple of years, through the pandemic, to be able to offer all the different things from yoga to strength training, how does somebody go about finding what classes are right for them?
Oh, that's a great question. So, if you're a person who doesn't have the equipment, I think the easiest thing to do is to use their app. It's a great way to access all of their classes. It's a pretty low entry fee, and a lot of times they'll have like 30 days for free for new subscribers, or maybe even 6 weeks, depending on what else is going on. So that gives you an opportunity to try the classes, and you don't need equipment to try the classes. So if you wanted to try, let's say you had a different exercise bike at home, you could use it on your iPad and you could take a class. Or perhaps you want to take an outdoor class. Maybe you like to run. You could listen to an outdoor run while you're running outside. And then if you have some handheld weights, you can easily join one of the strength classes, or just try some yoga. Meditation does not require any equipment. That's the best way to figure it out, is to sample all the classes and find out what really calls to you as a person.
Oh, I love that. I love that. One of my clients is really into Peloton. She absolutely loves that app, but she has her own bike, her own version of the bike, and she uses it on her treadmill and on the bike as well. And she loves it. Now, how does somebody find the instructor? Because I know this is so individual. I used to teach yoga, and people have their yoga instructor, and it is
Sure.
very, and what works for me might not be appealing to someone else. So how do they go about finding, are they locked into certain instructors or can they choose their instructors?
Oh, not at all locked in. You can choose your instructors at any time. So right now they're up to 55 instructors. So you can take, and that's across all different modalities. So you can, when you hop into the app and you want to look at the instructors and figure out which is the best fit for you, I always recommend taking the class. So let's say you decide, oh, you know what? I really want to dive into strength. I want to do some more strength exercises. The best way to do that is to take a class with each individual strength instructor to see who the best fit is. A lot of times people will do one of two things. They'll either look at a picture and decide, yes, that's the instructor I want to try, or they'll look at the music list and they'll say, this music really speaks to me. And some people are really driven by music, and each Peloton instructor
Mhm.
curates every single one of their classes. So the playlists that are behind them are very intentional, and they usually have some kind of theme. Even if it's a class that doesn't list itself as a theme, there's usually some overarching theme that still goes with it. And it's meant to match the class that they put together that day. So if you're a person who loves music, that's another great way to do it. But I personally, sometimes I forget what music was playing when I was taking the class. It doesn't drive me as much. So I like to figure out their personalities, and the people that speak to me, that are the most, they come across to me as the most authentic, tend to be the people that I really like just gel with. But not everybody's like that. Some people like, they like instructors who are just really hard on them. Like they want somebody to be not yelling, not bullying, but just like, don't give up on yourself. Like saying that kind of thing and
Mhm.
reminding you to not let yourself off the hook. And sometimes that's a better fit. So I think the only way to really find that is to take a class, even if it's a short class. And they have so many like 5-minute classes that are like a warm up or a cool down. You don't have to spend you don't have to spend an hour with somebody to figure out, oh, this is working, or no, this is not working. A lot of times they're going to make you laugh, or just speak to you right out of the gate. So it doesn't take long.
I love that. I used to teach group fitness, so I know how individual that is and how people are drawn to a style. Some people want that kind of cheerleader, some people want that drive, like you said. That was more of me, like, come on, don't give up on yourself, let's go. But to others, that's almost abrasive, like, no, no,
Yeah.
no. They want something different. How does someone go about this? Is kind of a random question, but it just popped in my head. How does someone become an instructor for Peloton? What's the process?
Boy, yeah, wouldn't everybody like to know? It is such a competitive market. The Peloton instructors are some of the highest paid instructors in the world, and the way that you get to be a Peloton instructor is to be recruited. It is kind of a secret process.
Yeah.
There are some of the instructors that have been there for a really long time. They will, it's a small community, so there's people that kind of chatter, and so then whenever somebody hears, oh, you should check out so and so, the Peloton instructor who handles that will go to that city and quietly take a class, or they'll watch video from a class and then they'll reach out. And it is a very exhaustive process to go through and actually become an instructor. And even once you do, you don't get introduced to the platform for about 6 to 9 months, because there's so much
Wow.
training that is involved. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I was struck when you said 55, I think you said instructors. And I
Hmm.
thought that's actually a small number when you consider the size of Peloton and how far their reach is. They're not just taking any old person in here, teach a class.
That is exactly right. And I think that's one of the things that makes them so incredibly successful. Their personalities, every single instructor, whether they're my favorite or not, like they have something special, the it factor. You know, Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen a celebrity on stage or something that you just like, you just instantly see they've got something like they've
Mm-hmm.
just got this
Mm-hmm.
presence. Even if they're just standing in an airport, you can see the presence around them. And the Peloton instructors all have some version of that. And sometimes it comes out as really quirky, funny things, or sometimes it'll come out as jokes, or sometimes it's going to come out as this like really big, like Robin Arzon, where she's just like rah beast mode. And so it's interesting how it can be conveyed in so many different ways, but each of them have something special. But when you also think about the fact that they can broadcast these classes worldwide, and
Hmm.
so you're able to take them from home and add to the fact that they have an online library, you don't have to take them live. So let's say a class is airing at 11 a.m. this morning. You don't have to take the class at 11 a.m. You could take it at 11:12. You could take it at 12:12. You could take it at 4 a.m. And that is the key to how they reach as many people as they do, and I think how they're able to keep it to so few instructors.
So they're worldwide. Do they have live classes in other countries, or where exactly, if somebody wanted to take a class, where would they go?
There are two places to do that. One is in New York, in Manhattan, and then the other one is in London. So in New York
Mm.
is where all of the US based instructors live, and that's where they are, that's where all the classes are broadcast out of for the US classes. There's also an Australian instructor, because Peloton is in Australia too, and they teach the class from the US location as well. Then there is a whole other location in London where there are several instructors that are UK, and there are several instructors for Germany as well. And the German instructors, for now at least, they broadcast out of the London studio as well.
That is so interesting to me. I didn't realize they were that far reaching. Now, let's say I go to New York, and because I frequently will go to New York, my husband and I want to take a class. I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, and you were talking to a gentleman about how hard it was to get into those classes.
It is now. Prior to the pandemic, before Peloton, like Peloton was definitely on an upward swing in popularity, but when the pandemic hit, everything changed. And they became a cultural phenomenon. At that point, obviously during the pandemic, the studios were closed down. When they reopened them this year, a lot of things changed. One of the things that changed is classes are only available Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take
Mm,
in studio. Then add to the fact that obviously there are only so many classes that you can take, and there are only so many instructors available to be able to take a class on a given Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So now what you have to do is go online to buy your ticket to get in.
mhm.
Um, but it's 6 weeks out. And for example, this week we're looking, like whenever the classes went live this Monday, we were 6 weeks from now looking at the classes for that would be 6 weeks on a weekend from then. And literally 1 minute in, classes are already full for all disciplines. That's how fast they sell out.
Wow.
The
Wow.
demand is incredible. It is really harder than getting concert tickets, truly.
That is crazy. It reminds me, I was part of that whole spin bike phenomenon that was going on. I think it was when it first started, like the 90s. Does that sound about
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I remember my husband and I, to get a bike, we would have to stay up till midnight, call the club, and the line would be busy, busy, busy to try to get a bike. And then there was a wait list, and people would
Yes.
literally, I once watched two people slug it out over, it's terrible, but fight over a bike. It was that crazy.
It is like that. And so Peloton has started to try to do some other things to help with those lines. So one of the things that they do is they'll have invite only events. So for instance, if you're a person who takes a class with an instructor who's having a special event and you never take any classes with anyone else, they'll try to reach out to like that group who's like the mega fans for that particular instructor and invite them. I don't know that there's really a way to do it that everyone's ever going to feel completely satisfied with, but they
Hmm.
try. They try to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to take a class. It is really tough. The other thing you can do is try to get on the wait list. They have a wait list for every single class, just like you were mentioning.
Hmm.
And with if you go to the studio and you're on a wait list, a lot of times you're able to get into other classes because you're already in the studio. And once you're in the studio, you can hang out there as long as you want. So if you can get on the wait list for other classes, you have a much better chance of getting in. But it is incredibly competitive, and there's a lot of people that get upset about it.
Oh, I bet. I bet. I remember how it was back in the 90s and how personally people would take it if they could not get that bike.
Exactly.
Do they have plans to expand as far as live classes, or they're just going to hold steady with what they're doing?
They are going to hold steady. I think if there is ever another studio to be opened, I think it will be in another country, and it will continue to be that international expansion. I also think that at some point, and this is just my personal opinion, I do not
Hmm.
know anything. My personal opinion is I think they will eventually add more days to that in studio experience.
Okay,
Again, right now it's just that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think they will add more days to that.
that makes sense. Now, you got into Peloton in 2016. Tell us, how did that happen? Because you went from this, corporate, inactive, sit on the couch person to being completely immersed in fitness.
Yeah, the short story is that I had for the past 4 years before that, maybe five, I had gone through a divorce, and the divorce was settled. It was super kind of just a crazy tumultuous time. I had a 4-year-old when all that started, and whenever things calmed down, so we're 4 to 5 years later in 2016. By that time, I was uh, I had just gotten remarried. We had a blended family. My household was steady and calm, and everything was just like at a point where I was like, I could take a deep breath. And I was like, okay, it's time to start focusing on taking care of myself. And that's where it started. I just simply wanted to go to spin classes, but I found that there were no spin classes in my area that worked with my schedule. I could get up at 5 a.m. to go take the class, which is not a problem. But then by the time I did the class, took a shower, went to work, like I wouldn't see the kids until I was home from school, and I was home from work and they were home from school. And I didn't feel right, especially in a blended household, being like, okay, daughter, you can now have your stepdad take care of you every day. That just felt very weird to me. It just didn't
Hmm.
sit right.
Hmm.
And so I wasn't comfortable with that. And whenever I was looking for all these different classes, Peloton popped up in my Facebook feed, and I was like, what is that? I need that immediately. I love technology. So the fact that there was this ability to take a live class at my own home without having to drive anywhere, I was instantly hooked. And as soon as we got the bike, I remember my husband was like, well, you have an elliptical downstairs. I don't really understand how this is any different. And I was like, but like they're on the screen, they're talking to me.
That is
And he was
so funny.
like, and he was like, how is that different than like taking the classes you take on your DVDs or whatever? Because I used to do a lot of at-home classes like P90X and
Hmm.
Insanity and things like that. And I was like, well, the difference is that it's actually happening live. Like there are people taking this class in the world at the exact same moment as I am. And if I don't take it live, if I take it on demand, the classes still change over time. You know, those DVDs, I'm sure you
Hmm.
remember,
Oh, yes.
they just live there. They do a class and that's the end of it. Once you've done it, you've done it. It's not like it changes 10 times. So that was a really big key for me too.
I remember doing I'll take it back even further, the VHS Jane Fonda workout. And like you have one and you do this workout over and oh, yeah, like you had it memorized where they
Yes.
laughed, where they talked, what they said. It was
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah, and God forbid there ever be one where they did like one set of 8 on the left side and 10 on the right, because then
Oh,
you couldn't not hear it.
I know. And I'm the type of person, something like that would drive me crazy.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. So you got into Peloton, you started changing everything. What happened with your nutrition? Did that come along after, like, did the exercise piece come first, the nutrition later? Because that's how it was for me. Exercise was first, and then I began to change my lifestyle habits.
That's a great question. Mine was actually a little bit reversed. And I think the reason for that is because I was getting ready to get married in 2014, 15, remarried. And so I wanted to look great for my wedding. And I didn't have time to exercise, didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. So my solution was a diet, a typical diet that you would hear that's like restriction. I was just really careful about the calories I put
Mhm.
in. And so I did lose quite a bit of weight on my own before I started exercising. And then I became like, I want to be an athlete. Like I want to not just be skinny. I want to feel good. I want to feel strong. I want to feel healthy. And those can be very different things. And so that all clicked for me when I found Peloton. I was a lot smaller than I had been, but I didn't know how to take it to the next level.
So you say athlete, did you start competing in events of various kinds, like marathons or?
Yeah, so through the community, I had a crazy bunch of friends that I met through Peloton, and I say that with love. Like there were people that I met that had never done any kind of triathlon, and they went straight to an Ironman for their first event, and they
Mm,
trained for an entire
wow.
year straight. They did finish, by the way. And so the next year after they had done their Ironman is when I found them. I was interviewing them for the clip out, the Peloton podcast, and I was inspired. I was like, wow, you guys in your 40s and 50s, you just decided to do this. How is that a thing? And so they kind of took me under their wing and they were like, here, you should do a half Ironman relay. There's a half Ironman relay that takes place every year in Atlantic City. And I was like, I've never run a mile. How am I going to run 13? And they were like, you're just going to train. And I was like, okay. So I started running every day, and not every day, but I would run several times a week. And that's kind of when everything shifted for me. I've got a road bike, and I started road biking all the time and doing events. So I've done duathlons, and I've done the half Ironman relay that we did finish. And our team name was called Just Finish because none of us needed a good time. We just needed to have a good time
Love
and
it.
finish. And so that led to just wanting to feel like, what else can I do? At the moment, I'm actually training for a 21-mile race in at Big Sur. They have a marathon that takes place there every year, and you probably know about it. It's a very challenging marathon, and I didn't think that was a great idea for my first marathon, particularly because
Hmm.
I am a slow runner, and you have to have a cutoff time of 13. I think it's 13 minutes and 45 seconds that you have to do each mile for the Big Sur
Oh, yeah.
Marathon.
Hmm.
And that was really intimidating knowing that it's so uphill and there's a wind in your face the entire time. So that didn't feel like I didn't know that I could do that for 26 miles. So I opted to try the 21 mile, and you get a little bit more time. You get the exact same amount of hours that people have to do the 26, but
Hmm.
because you're only doing 21, you have more time. So I'm going to be trying that in April. And then if that goes well, then I have my sights set on the New York City Marathon for 2023. So that's my next big thing.
Oh, that's excited. I never did either of those marathons, but I did do the Boston twice,
Oh, wow.
which, yeah,
Wow.
was a
Did
dream.
did you get in through qualifying, or did you do like the charity? I'm so fascinated by this process of how you can get into different marathons. So I'm curious how you were able to do that.
I qualified, and it's a funny story because the way that I started running, I was in my 40s, early 40s, just decided one day I'm going to run. I didn't have the right shoes, nothing. I was taking those spin classes, cut out this little thing in the newspaper at the time that was a training plan. That's what I followed. Went to the Duke City, and I actually thought I was a slow runner. I honestly thought I was a slow runner. Well, come to find out, I was a lot faster than I realized I
That's
was
awesome.
because I had nothing to compare it with. And it was funny because I thought, oh, I'm not seeing any women around. I must be really slow. I must be behind. And it was the opposite. I was up ahead. And I wound up getting the masters, taking top five and qualifying my
Wow.
first time. And I didn't even
Wow.
know anything about the Boston Marathon. They're just like, you're qualified. And I'm like, what? I'm qualified for what? And off I
Yeah, that's
went.
amazing. Congratulations. That is so cool. Yeah, and see that's why I'm asking, because like people don't necessarily know that if you just want to do marathons, you can't just show up at a marathon and do it. Like it's a whole thing, and
It's a
and it is
thing.
not easy to qualify for that. So that is really incredible. Good for you. That's awesome.
It's funny what you can discover about yourself in those later years, because I think we have a tendency to think, oh, I can't do that. Run a marathon, do a triathlon, no way. You don't know what you're capable of until you do it. And you hit on that where you said I forget how you put it, it just gave you that confidence to say, what's next?
Yes. Yes. And curiosity, like what else is my body capable of? Like what else can I
Yes.
do? Yeah, I think that there's a part of me, if I didn't have so much going on, that I would be the person that's like, ooh, let's try an ultra marathon. Ooh, let's try, I would kind
Hmm.
of try some of the more like I don't want to say they're more difficult events, like they're more endurance based, and I would love to try some of those things, but the training time behind them is just so incredibly intense, and I just don't feel like I would be able to completely commit to that with everything else going on. But there's part of me that wants to.
I was the same way. The ultras are hard on the body because in the community, the running community I used to be a part of, some of us were marathoners, half marathoners, ultra, and I could see the toll that took on the ultra marathoners, especially as they started to age. You could definitely see that stress on the body, how much training they had to do, how many miles they had to put in. It's crazy.
It is. It is.
So, strength training, I want to get your take on that. Are you into strength training? Is that part of, because it wasn't part of mine until later. So I was the marathon runner, but I had no muscle. Like I never picked up a weight.
I was the same. I had no idea how to do any strength training whatsoever. I wanted to strength train, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm.
So when I got Peloton, and at the time, again, remember back then they were just the bike. They had some like body weight classes and things like that that you could take, but nothing really structured. And actually, what ended up happening there was a little company known as Tonal came along, and they wanted to advertise on our podcast because they were like, "Oh, we would like to talk to the Peloton listeners." So I was instantly in love with Tonal because it's this huge machine that like goes against your wall and it uses electromagnetic strength. In other words, you don't have to have a bunch of free weights because it all of the weights are kept into two arms that are attached to the machine. So
Hmm.
all of the movements that you do are like they repeat or they mimic um, machines that have arms with the bands in them. I'm not using the right terminology. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
like the cables, like
Cable
the,
machines.
yes,
Yes, that's
yes.
exactly what I was trying to think of. And and so it's the same movements that you would see in a cable machine, but you're doing it with electromagnetic strength. And I had never seen anything like that. I didn't know anything like that was possible. But the tonal was a game changer for me because it, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was so intimidated by going to the gym. The idea of going
Mhm.
not only into the gym, but the area where the people who were lifting weights and they looked like they knew what they were doing
Oh,
was
yeah.
so scary to me. So having the ability to do all these moves at home, and I had a personal trainer, like I had this very this wise person standing in front of me saying, "This is how you lift. This is how you do a bicep curl. This is how you lift over your head. And these are the order in which you should do those moves. And this is why the science behind all of that." And it would remember the weights that I lifted. So I didn't have to remember it. It would just, and it
Mm.
kept increasing and it increased automatically by 1 pound every time I successfully lifted that type of weight 3 times. It would automatically lift, it would automatically increase. And there's a lot longer algorithm attached to it, but I'm just simplifying. That was game changing for me. And I started lifting weights, I guess, in 2019. So at that point, I had my treadmill. I had already done the September of 2018 is when I did my first half marathon. And I actually found, which I'm sure you have found this before too with people, that I was gaining weight whenever I was running, especially toward the end of
Yes.
my training program.
Yes.
I was hungry all the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, how is this possible? I'm burning all these calories and I'm not losing weight. And so when I got the tonal, I was all in, started doing strength training all the time, and I was able to gain quite a bit of lean muscle mass. Around that time, I also found MetPro, which is a really cool program that is not a diet. It's reverse dieting, or also called like, it's what bodybuilders do. So you have cuts,
Hmm.
it's kind of carb cycling. I had never heard of that either. So kind of like all these things started kind of coming into place. And that's when I was like, well, I want to get my personal training certificate. I want to get my nutrition certificates. I wanted to understand how these things could work for me. I wanted to know so that I could put my own training programs together. And that's what launched me into going down that path with NASM and getting certified for that. And now we're here.
That's so similar to my story because I went from the running, which showed me I was capable of doing more than I gave myself credit for. But then the same thing, I noticed I was gaining weight with each and every race. Toward the end of training, I would pack on this extra 5 pounds. And I'm like, how is this even possible? I just ran 22 miles. Like, where is this coming from? But I had no muscle. So I wasn't understanding how metabolism worked and how muscle increases your metabolism and how the stress will make you start to hold on to everything, hold on to the body fat, hold on to the water, because your body's like, are we running from a lion or what are we
Exactly.
what are we doing? What's happening? I've got to protect you. So yeah, strength training was the game changer. And once I couldn't run anymore because I had some injuries, I went into the bodybuilding end of things. And I know exactly what you mean because that's what brought me into wanting to be a personal trainer, wanting to coach. And okay, how does the nutrition work? Because it is so precise, the cutting, the reverse dieting.
Yes, yes. And that just lights me up now. And that going down that path then just kind of I started finding myself at work being like really distracted all the time because I was like, what's going on with my social media? Who's doing what? And not because I didn't want to work, but because I was curious about the world was
Mhm.
calling to me. And so that was just kind of the realization of I need to figure out how to make this my full-time thing because that's where my heart is at now and that's where my passion is because I saw you light up when you were just talking about that. Like you can tell that's something that you just love and that I had never experienced that before, that I was in love with what I did. I mean, I did my job because I had to and I didn't hate it or anything. Huge difference between not hating it and loving it. And so that was the big motivator for me to change careers at that point.
Are you currently working in person with clients or online or?
So it's all online. I do a little bit of I have my podcast that is I'm fortunate that that was monetized, and then in addition to that, I ended up working for MetPro because I had told them, hey, I'm gonna start doing personal training for people, and my goal was to take people who had all of these devices like a tonal like different Peloton things and
Mhm.
show them how to put that together. There were a lot of people that didn't know how to do that at that time, and that was where I wanted to go with it, and they were like, oh well, we always need coaches, why don't you come work for us? And so now I do the Met Pro Method podcast, so I do their podcast and I get
Oh,
to be a
that's
coach for
great.
them. So in that way it kind of all came together as one ability to work from home, which I love.
What a wonderful opportunity. I know I used to work in person with clients, either coaching or personal training. Then, when we all were shut in for 2 years, I took that opportunity to take everything online, which I love because you can work with so many more people than you
Yeah.
can one-on-one in person.
Yeah. So are you able to do like classes with people then? So kind of like I know it wouldn't be considered group fitness in the same way, but do you do that type where you're educating several people at the same time?
It's yes and no. We're not actually doing classes like exercise classes, but what I do is nutrition and fitness coaching. So I'll give my clients for my bigger program, which is Fit and Fierce, I give them basically a prescription. Everybody's got a different exercise and nutrition prescription, but then we meet together as a group for questions and support. So it's kind of a one-on-one group coaching all together.
I love that. That's awesome. Good for you. That's really cool.
Now, when you're working with clients, this just came through my mind because I run into this every once in a while where you get somebody that doesn't like exercise. This used to
Mm.
happen when I was working in person with clients. I remember a woman telling me, Carol, you don't get it. I don't like to exercise. And I had the hardest time because she loved to hike, but what she didn't like was the being in the gym with the weight training. And she stayed with it. She did it, but it is awfully hard to bring someone from that place of I don't like to exercise. This hurts. This is uncomfortable to getting them to love it. How do you deal with this?
Oh, that's a toughie. So full disclosure, my husband, who's also my co-host for the clip out, he hates exercise. Like a lot. He also eats. He self-described as an 8-year-old boy at a theme park. That is how he describes how he eats. And so we have lived with this challenge. I think that the key there is to meet the person where they are. When it
Mhm.
came to my husband, and it's different when you're in a relationship with somebody versus teaching them. But with my husband, I was very hands off. I let him come to it on his own terms, and he did eventually. He now does the tonal and loves it, and has lost 70 pounds, and he looks
Oh,
amazing.
wow. It's
um,
great.
it is. I'm so proud of him. But with my own clients, what I tend to do is set small goals. So some people are just never going to be the people that want to go to the weight room at the gym, but maybe they can do something else. So maybe they have hand weights they can do at home. I'm a big person that's like, well, Apple Fitness has a thing, Peloton has a thing, like, or like, oh, in our app we have all these different exercises you can do. Just do 10 of these. And I kind of start with just very small things. And another thing that I learned is we have a sports psychologist that comes onto the show, Dr. Jen Mann. She's been in a lot of different shows and reality shows and things like that, where she has helped people through their problems. And one of the things that she often says when people ask for advice is to think about your why of what's going on that is keeping you from doing that. Because if the why truly is this doesn't feel good, I'm not getting the feel good vibes from it, you're not going to when you first start. And that's important to
Hmm.
remember, to not have the expectation of day one, I'm going to feel amazing. It took me a long time to feel good after running, like like over
Hmm.
a year. That is not exactly exciting for somebody who's just starting. For some people, that love comes a lot quicker. But I think that when you can explain that to somebody and set realistic expectations, it helps get them in the right headspace. And it's all about routine. So if you can help somebody with the rest of the things that they do want to do, like their diet, if they're good with that, you really focus on that. And then one small step at a time for the things that they don't like, that they don't want to do, that can get them over time where they want to be.
That is key. I agree with you 100%. It's all these little steps. And for me in my program, it's everything from sleep to stress management to, okay, just do 10 minutes of HIIT or 20 minutes of bands, a resistance training of some kind. It's these small bite-sized pieces that go into this that's so important because people have to, I think, feel successful along the way. And if they're overwhelmed, no one's going to feel successful with that.
Absolutely. And then you have people who are like myself, the all or nothing thinkers. And so they're like, oh, but 10 minutes doesn't do anything.
Same, same. I'm insane at the gym. I tell my clients, Don't do what I do." Because
Buddy.
it's definitely an obsession with me. But I was one of those people. It was from the get-go. Once I ran and I got that kind of runner's high, boy, that was it. It was here we go.
Yeah, you were so fortunate to have that runner's high day one. I was, yeah, no, that did not occur for me. I just completely, I'm the person who's like, well, I said I'm going to do this, so I'm not going to stop until I'm done.
Oh,
That's the
yes.
only thing that got
Yes.
me done. I will do this. That's it.
Yes. Yes, I'm the same way. I made the huge announcement about the marathon. I did it with my first bodybuilding show. Like, okay, I can't back out. I just told the world I'm doing this, and now it's a matter of principle. Like, this is going to happen.
Pressure. Good luck.
So, with your nutrition, because you mentioned this earlier in the podcast, you talked about how initially it was just eat less and probably exercise more. Has your view on that shifted?
So much, so much. When I finally like got around to the 2019 time period where I was talking to MetPro and started my journey of doing the nutrition certificate and personal training certificate, but MetPro was teaching me how they do things. I was literally eating 1,100 calories a day and working out
Ooh.
6 days a week and not losing weight. And gee, I wonder why. I mean, at the time, I
Mhm.
truly didn't understand why, but now it's so incredibly obvious that I was way under eating and working out way more than my body could handle. So as you said earlier, that stress makes you hold on to things. So of course,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's very demotivating, and a lot of women feel that way, and it's really opened my eyes to the damage that the diet industry can do, because they explain parts of it but they don't explain the whole part of it. And so at least people like myself, you're left with, well, they always say calories in, calories out, so it's just that simple, and I just got to do more, more, more. And there's a lot more to it. It's not that simple.
Yeah, our bodies are very smart. And when we overexercise, it just keeps slowing down that basal metabolic rate. Like, okay, it perceives, our brain and body perceives danger. You're starving yourself. So let's just slow down that metabolism where it's dropping, that basal metabolic rate is dropping. And I think that that's something that is still not really understood by women, because as women, we want to look at that number on the scale and then go to what we've known our whole life, what we've heard our whole life. Okay, exercise more, eat less.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I also recently, in the last couple of years, came across Stacy Sims and all of her
Mm,
amazing,
yes.
amazing research that she
She's
has done
great.
about perimenopause and menopausal women, postmenopausal women, and really opened my eyes to the thing you were talking about with the stress and the basal metabolic rate. The more that you're stressed, the higher your cortisol levels are, and as
Mhm.
we get older and our hormones start to shift, they're not in control anymore. So we that's like the worst thing that you could be doing. And so that was eye opening for me as well. It's a fascinating subject to me.
Same, same. I realized the importance of hormones when I started to work with women and they were in that demographic, right around 45, 50, especially that perimenopausal time where they're coming into menopause. And I would give them something and it wasn't working. And I'd be like, okay, what is going on here? And it wasn't until I really dug in and realized how that affects us. I mean, everything from our adrenals try to make estrogen when the ovaries check out. And so that changes the game. We're just far more vulnerable to that stress.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And it can be absolutely maddening if you don't understand what is going on.
So when you get a client and they've got that weight loss resistance and they're kind of in that window, because that's what I see, like right around 50-ish, and maybe insulin is starting to be an issue or their blood glucose regulation, the cortisol, what advice do you give them?
Well, three things. One, that the carb cycling is incredibly helpful because we're able to gradually increase their metabolism by adding the carbs to their diet, which a lot of women, especially in that age range, are terrified of carbs. I was too.
Hmm.
And once you understand that and you're able to add those back, that helps. And especially if you're eating the right kind of carbs, because that's another thing I learned, that carbs are not not all carbs are created equal. So sweet potatoes are going to feel very differently to your body than eating a piece of white bread, and so, or a big thing of white rice. And again, these were all things that I had to learn. And so feeding your body with really complex carbohydrates increases your metabolism. That has
Hmm.
a huge part of it. And then as far as what else, the other two pieces are lift heavy, very heavy, and small rep schemes. So, five, maybe do five at a time and only do that 2 or 3 times, because you want to be lifting so heavy that you're putting that stress on your body. And it's like, oh, you want me to do this now? Because it doesn't get that at our age. As we age, it doesn't get it anymore.
Right.
Your body's not understanding it. And then my favorite is sprint interval training. And that's my favorite because I can feel it almost instantly in myself. It Being able to do like 30 seconds on, as absolutely fast as you can go, and then resting for 30 seconds, doing that a few times in a row, taking 5 minutes to run very slow, repeating that 2 or 3 times, depending on your fitness level. Um, it really works against visceral fat specifically. And I love that. And I can always feel it. Like I feel leaner in my stomach the next day. And I don't know, maybe that's just in my head, but I always feel it and I love it. That's my favorite one to do. So those three things together, I think are huge pieces for ladies who are right in the middle of the most frustrating time when it comes to wanting to lose weight.
I agree with you, especially like the carbohydrates not being the enemy, but then it has to be, this isn't a green light to go eat cakes and cupcakes and all of the
Potato
things. It has,
chips.
yeah, that was my downfall back in the day. Chocolate mint ice cream and potato
Oh,
chips before I changed my ways.
I still struggle with chocolate. I am not going to lie. If it's something chocolate in front of me, I mean, I have my moments where I want to eat the chocolate. And sometimes I do because life is
Hmm.
short. And what's the point if you can't enjoy the things that you love?
And there's all those polyphenols in the dark chocolate are very, very good for serotonin levels. And so, yeah, we have my husband and I will have a little piece at night, and I look forward to it. It's our little treat.
That's wonderful. I love that. That's great. It's a good idea.
So, you were talking about lifting heavy, and what came to mind, because I have a back injury that prevents me. I can still do pretty well with a lot of exercises, but there's some like the back weighted squat it's just deadlifts. I cannot go heavy, and most deadlifts I cannot do. What do you do with someone like that has these injuries and they want to see these results in their body? And that can be so frustrating, but you can't push past a certain point.
Yeah, there are adaptive exercises you can do, but I would definitely recommend like physical therapy to get that back stronger specifically. And until that is strong, you definitely don't want to be doing any kind of deadlifts or anything like that. And as far as like in the meantime, there's a lot of upper body workouts that you could do that at least will increase your lean muscle mass in some areas. You could still do a lot of core work that doesn't require you to use your back. And of course, there's leg exercises that you could do without being weighted. It's not lifting heavy, it's not going to get you the end result, but it keeps the muscles engaged, it keeps them working, and it keeps them moving in the right direction as far as strength goes. So that's very important to make sure that you are healthy and using good form and working with a personal physical therapist. Excuse me.
Yes, I agree with you. The fascia, I often explain to my clients, you've got this fascia which runs from basically your neck all the way down to the ankles. And I had the experience once of my back hurting, and it turned out to be tightness in my ankle from being on the stair stepper too long when I was prepping for a
Oh,
competition. But everything is connected. I was feeling it all the way into the hip and back. So it's important, I think, chiropractic, but then also having somebody that can work on that fascia and break that up.
definitely agree with that. And I have experienced that with my hamstrings, not with my ankles, but with my
Oh,
hamstrings. And it is,
yeah.
yeah, anything in your lower back is nothing to mess with. That is, be careful with your lower back for sure. Lots of stretching. That's another thing you can do. Lots of stretching.
I agree. As we wrap up, I want to be respectful of your time, but was there something that I didn't ask you or cover that you would like to share?
I think that there's a lot of people that feel, well, if you're like me and you weren't an athlete, you're in your 40s, I can't be an athlete. Like you don't associate yourself in that way. You don't see yourself that way, and it can be almost uncomfortable to see yourself in a different light and see yourself being an athlete. I had a lot of trouble with that. So for anybody out there who wants to work out, who wants to do things but doesn't know where to start or how to start, it doesn't have to be this huge program or going to the gym or any of the things that I did. It can simply be walking. It can simply be something you enjoy doing with your children or grandchildren, or lifting weights in your own home 10, 20 minutes a day, and find something that you just love doing that you will keep doing. all none of it matters if you're not going to keep doing it. So find
Hmm.
something that you enjoy, and don't worry about the structure or what's going to be optimal or the best way to do it. Just find something you enjoy and start there.
So, so good. Such good advice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they would just like to learn more about what you do or learn more about your podcast?
Sure. You can find me at theclipout.com, and you can reach out and contact me there. You can find out about the podcast there. You can also contact me on any social medias at Clipout Crystal. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Clipout Crystal. And if you want to follow me on the leaderboard, Peloton or Tonal, Clipout Crystal as well.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I've really enjoyed our discussion today.
I have too. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate your time.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.